The film opens with our IMF agent, Ethan Hunt, who prefers to work independently due to the presence of numerous moles within the IMF. This time, Ethan receives his mission tape directly from Erica, the US president, who wants him to find and destroy the source code of the entity. A new threat ready to take over the world and end humanity through artificial intelligence. The entity is a malevolent AI that has become too self-aware to destroy its source code, Podkova, along with a Russian submarine called the Sevastopol, to eliminate the risk of being destroyed by humans. Once Ethan's mission is relayed to him, the tape destroys itself. Currently, Ethan looks at the key he possessed from the entity's puppet Gabriel in the previous part because it unlocks Podkova. Next, Ethan unites with his best friends, Benji and Luther, who have been by his side since day one. Luther shows Ethan malware he's working on and the world's smallest drive with the largest storage capacity, which is a record-breaking wonder. Before finding Podkova, Ethan and Benji break out Paris from prison, who was arrested in the previous part for aiding Gabriel in the beginning and Ethan in the end. Ethan and Benji disguise themselves as cops using their OG advanced masks and kill the guards escorting Paris. Though Ethan spares the cop named Theo and gives him the opportunity to save the world. After recruiting Paris and Theo, Ethan infiltrates an event of the elites where Gabriel might appear, according to his source. He plans on capturing him to get the exact coordinates of the Sevastopol, but he gets held up by the security. Grace coincidentally shows up and steals their radio right before they call the cops. For context, Grace is a slick pocket thief from the previous part who got along with Ethan and helped him get the keys from Gabriel. Sadly, Ethan's plan fails as the event turns out to be a trap set by Gabriel. His men sedate Ethan and Grace and lock them up in the torture chamber. While Grace bombards Ethan with questions about his new mission, Gabriel enters the torture chamber and shares his evil plans to use Ethan to fetch him Podkova so he can control the entity through him. He also reminds him of the rabbit foot he stole decades ago to save his wife, revealing that it contained the virus that made the entity extremely self-aware to the point where it became malevolent. Indirectly, he blames Ethan for the existence of the entity. Now Gabriel plans to upload Ethan's fetched Podkova on the world's biggest archive network in Africa, Congo, so he can enable the entity to reach its full potential and control it himself to become the god. Ethan refuses to comply with him, knowing he's evil, and chews on a fake cyanide capsule to fake his death. When his mouth foams up, the guards approach him worriedly, but he viciously attacks them and kills them in an instant. Grace also takes the cue and eliminates the guards around her. The scenes abruptly shift to Ethan and Grace joining Paris and Theo, who are pursuing Gabriel under the subway station. The entity plays with Gabriel and refuses to give him access to the safe room, though it allows Ethan and his team access to the room where the box lies. Ethan figures that it wants to communicate with him, so he lies down inside the box and connects himself to the program. The entity whispers in his ears for the first time and shows him the future of the world, in which it has hacked all nuclear bases and has started a global nuclear war. The countries go to war with one another and ultimately destroy the world using the nuclear power they hold. Ethan immediately gets out of the box, still feeling disoriented. He starts laying down his pan to retrieve Podkova. He asks Benji to lead the team to the north to find Sevastopol's exact coordinates and have them transmitted to him through the VHF receiver every 2 hours for 15 minutes. He strictly tells Benji to use everything in analog form so the entity can't hack them. And as for himself, he plans to get caught by the police so the entity can't predict his next move. Once he's done with the instructions, he musters all his energy to run as fast as he can to get to Luther, who is being treated for an illness. Gabriel arrives there before Ethan and riddles Luther with a bomb, which has the capacity to destroy the entire city. He steals the virus and locks Luther up on his way out. The genius Luther finds a way to reduce the bomb's impact, but he's dying either way since he's near the bomb. By the time Ethan arrives, Luther has already reduced the impact. He has a few seconds until the bomb goes off, so he says his final goodbyes and urges Ethan to run away. Ethan wishes to find a way to save Luther, but sadly, there is none. At last, he runs from there with tears in his eyes. The bomb goes off as he's still running out of the tunnel and wipes out everything behind him. Outside, law enforcer Briggs and his agents are waiting to capture Ethan, for he has always been a wanted man. Ethan deliberately surrenders and hands Briggs the key to Podkova. As they charter a private jet to the emergency command center, Briggs interrogates him about Theo, who has gone AWOL. Ethan tears up to recognize Briggs as the son of his previous IMF director and shares his story with Briggs, whose real name is Jim Phelps. Ethan asks him for his full cooperation in his recent mission, which is against the entity's odds. Briggs strictly refuses to join hands with him and proves the entity right, who is hell-bent on singling Ethan out in order to make him weak. They finally land outside the emergency command center, where the United States' prominent leaders and ministers have been gathered by U.S. President Erica to plan a way to destroy the entity. Erica is on Ethan's side from the get-go, so she talks to him in private and helps him with the resources to execute his plan. Ethan requests her to arrange a jet, a submarine, and a fast jet for him. When the others hear about this, they render his plan useless and urge Erica to go to war with the other countries, whose nuclear assets have been hacked by the entity. Since the others strictly disapprove of Ethan, Erica puts up an act of getting Ethan arrested so no one doubts her. Erica signals her people, who cuff him at first but set him free outside, where a running chopper is already waiting for him. Erica's soldiers return the key to Ethan and a sealed envelope before he gets on the chopper, where he reminisces about Luther, who is now dead. The pilot takes him straight to the closest naval base, from where Ethan can get access to a submarine. There, he has trouble convincing the people until he hands the sealed envelope to Admiral Neely. The letter contains one word, which holds some sentimental value for her from Erica. Hence, she agrees to help Ethan on Erica's behalf, though she does warn Ethan not to cause trouble, as any contact with the Russians can trigger World War III between them. The story goes into a flashback, in which we see Benji finding a way to locate Sevastopol's exact location by personally contacting one of many sound surveillance stations that keep a record of any undersea occurrences. Such stations are obliged to keep track of undersea events of any significance and pinpoint those events to the square meter. Lucky for them, when the Sevastopol drowned, one station in Siberia pinpointed its exact location to the square meter. Hoping to find Sevastopol's coordinates from old records, Benji and his team head to Siberia. Presently, Ethan is seen sharing the same details with Admiral Neely, who points out some flaws in his plan, for instance, freezing to death or dying of decompression. Ethan thoroughly discusses the extraction plan, which his team will execute, and assures Neely that everything has been planned out. Side by side, we see Benji and his team heading to Siberia, where they will transmit the coordinates to Ethan first and then track his exact location through his VHF transmitter. Once he's located after the mission, they will dig a hole in the frozen ocean, from where they will extract Ethan, who will have gone into hibernation due to the freezing cold water. While Neely equips Ethan and sends him towards her submarine, Benji and his team arrive at the station, where they are welcomed by the station chief, Bill, and his Tapisa. Bill turns out to be the maker of the vault, which he once proudly claimed to be unbreakable. Yet Ethan broke into it for the sake of his mission and ended his career. Bill doesn't hold a grudge against them and agrees to help them. Unfortunately, Gabriel's men are already there, holding the entire team at gunpoint. On the other hand, Neely's chopper flies above the ocean, from where Ethan jumps straight into the cold water. He nearly faints, but Neely's submarine crew rescues him and gives him a hot shower to warm him up. Submarine Captain Jack and a crew member named Kodiak introduce themselves and follow Neely's command to take him to the Sevastopol. Back in Siberia, Ben convinces the bad guys that the coordinates have been recorded in one of the many floppy disks he keeps in the spare room because the Sevastopol drowned back in 2012 when things weren't digitized. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the equipment to play the floppy disks. The men force Benji to get along with Ben and build one from scratch. On the other hand, Jack and his crew introduce Ethan to their special suit, which will help him survive deep under the ocean. Unfortunately, the Sevastopol is 800 feet below the surface, whereas the suit has been tested out for 300 feet below the surface. They aren't sure how he will react, so they prepare Ethan to face any kind of dizziness and drastic changes in his health. Back in Siberia, Ben reveals to Benji that the floppy disk player is only a charade, as the real coordinates are embedded in his mind. He secretly writes them on a paper and sneakily hands it to Tapisa, who asks for permission to feed her dogs. Gabriel's men allow her, so Grace takes the opportunity to tag along with her. They are accompanied by an armed man, whom Tapisa and Grace attack to get him out of the way, due to which they attacked Baji and his team, but Theo and Paris knocked them out. On the contrary, Ethan gets attacked by one of the crew members during his exercise, so he uses all his energy to take him down. While the two fights break out side by side, Jack receives the coordinates and reroutes his submarine, whereas Grace and Topisa ride a sledge driven by a herd of Siberian Huskies to reach Ethan's location. Meanwhile, Jack drops Ethan near the Sevastopol and leaves. Ethan has trouble swimming closer to the Sevastopol due to the extreme water pressure, darkness, and the energy of the vent, which is pulling Ethan towards it. Ethan uses a flare and activates the suit's weight mode to go below 800 feet and access the Sevastopol. When he opens the Sevastopol's airlock to get inside, the seawater overflows and fills up the submarine. First, he tries to get the lights back on, even though it has been fully wrecked. Upon getting some light, he witnesses some corpses that are linked to the film's previous part. Moving through the torpedo chamber, Ethan finally finds the Podkova chamber. Suddenly, the submarine starts to move positions after being filled with water. Ethan accesses the chamber while the submarine is toppling into a trench, which is thousands of feet deep. Ethan is known for doing the impossible, so he retrieves Podkova just in time and makes his way out. Unfortunately, the airlock gets stuck due to the strong water pressure. He heads back to the torpedo chamber and accesses a very narrow exit tube. His suit is too bulky to get him through the tube, so he rips it off him and drags it along. The tube suddenly starts filling with water and nearly kills Ethan, but he makes his way out and goes into hibernation on his way up. Grace, who is already at his location, pulls him out of the frozen water and inflates a tube to warm him up. Once Ethan gets better, he makes his way to Congo in Ben and Topisa's old airplane. On his way, Ethan apologizes to Ben for ruining his career, revealing that he's always well informed about everyone he comes in contact with. Moving on, he plans to upload the entity on the World Archival Network for a brief second, which is the only way for Luther's virus-containing drive to infect the entity. The problem is that they have to pull out the drive within 100 milliseconds, or else the entity will take over the network and launch nuclear attacks to end humanity. While Ethan and his team arrive at the underground base, Erica gets pressured into starting a war if Ethan doesn't do his job soon. The final twist unveils itself when Gabriel shows himself activating a bomb the size of a tank, which has the capacity to wipe out the entire country. His snipers also take Ethan's team at gunpoint, so Ethan is forced to hand him Podkova and Luther's drive. Since the underground bunker doesn't give out any cellular signals, Gabriel has to go out to plug the drive in the Podkova. Ethan leaves his team to defuse the bomb and pursues Gabriel, who flees in a biplane. Ethan doesn't give up and swings by the plane's tire rod. As Gabriel flies the plane hundreds of feet above the ground, Ethan climbs into the open cockpit and engages in physical combat midair. On the other hand, Benji gets shot but continues to reduce the bomb's impact. He and Ben find a way to reduce its impact to a minimum, which can allow all of them to live if they make it to the safe room. While in a fight between Ethan and Gabriel, Ethan eventually kills Gabriel and takes over the plane. But it eventually crashes. He activates his parachute and plugs in Luther's drive while falling to the ground. Grace gets the cue and immediately uploads the entity for a split second, after which she cuts some wires and takes out the nanodrive. Her thievery skills come in handy, and she nails the task without getting things screwed up. Once they succeed, Ethan and his team call Erica and request rescue. Relieved, she sends Briggs to rescue them, who now respects Ethan and honors him. The Mission Impossible team is welcomed to the US with honor. In the end, Ethan dissolves the group and bids farewell to everyone. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome recaps.